So then should you be looking toward, you called it self-selection really, that someone who likes the culture embraces it and someone who doesn't leaves the company. Uh, should that be the focus, or is somebody who is quote unquote negative, is that enough reason to weed them out of the business?
You know, and that's a paradoxical point of view too, because what you will find are at times there are individuals who are maybe not directly sabotaging a culture, but they're creating subcultures of unhealthy environments. What happens very clearly is that leadership cannot let that go on too long, or it will contaminate the environment. In fact, one of our presidents in our Aileron group asked Clay Mathill that very question when he was sitting in one of our culture sessions. And he said to Clay, I have a man who has been with us for about 20 years. He understands how to operate this machine. We do not have anybody else at this point in time that understands how to operate this specific machine. He will not teach anybody, and he is constantly saying negative things about the organization. Clay looked at this young president and asked him very directly, do you really want to hear my point of view? The young man said, I do. I want to make this business success. And Clay said, you have to let him go. The young man, whose name happens to be Steve Staub, and he doesn't mind my telling the story, couldn't believe that Clay was actually telling him to let this man go with all his intellectual capital. Steve worked on that problem for about 6 months, finally let the man go, and his organization has never been healthier. You cannot allow people who have subversive cultural elements to stay in the organization. Leadership needs to step up to the bat no matter what their intellectual capital is of the organization, because otherwise the entire organization will succumb to that level of almost inadvertent sabotage.
Okay. Well, any business leader that is going to struggle to change their environment to make it more positive should, I guess, should that be the end goal, and not take into account sort of conditions on the ground? And I say that because the state of the economy is such that the media has glommed onto this issue almost with an obsessiveness, and has created a really dark picture of what any employee or employer could expect in the next couple of years. Should a business buy into that and say, well, everything's so negative, I'm not going to push a new positive environment? I guess my question is, can you safely create that bubble even in the midst of true negativity all around you? And I guess also, what is the first step to do that? So imagine a business leader with this problem, worried that the economy is a greater problem than his negative workforce. Where do they start?
Yeah, and what a wonderful question, because bottom line, that's really what we're living at this point in time. One of the mantras that we use at Aileron is a very simple one, which is strategy, no matter what the economic environment, will determine where you're going to go. And at times, you need to do a revitalization of your strategy, a recreation of the strategy. So you're always, especially in a downturn, revisiting strategy and looking at new and variable ways to build, to extend the business. No matter what the strategy is, it determines where you want to go. The culture determines whether you will get there or not. So savvy presidents at this point in time are doing two things. First of all, they're revisiting their strategies, updating their strategies. They're bringing into common language and common concerns scenarios that impact their strategy, economic health right away. Concurrently, what they are doing is going in the opposite direction of what the media is pushing. What they are literally doing is revisiting their culture, assuring individuals as they can the validity and the safety of the organization, again, from an honest point of view, in order to lead forward. You can lead forward out of fear, or you could lead forward out of hope. And the successful leaders right now, even in our environment around Aileron and our Aileron clients, those who have been and can find success are leading from the strength of creating and enhancing that culture to support whatever strategy there's in place. Now, I'm not saying that they're not having to let people go. Those are rough issues. I'm not saying that they don't have to downsize, extremely rough issues. But effective leaders are being very clear in their communication. They're being consistent in their communication. If that's one thing that leaders need to do, is to be very clear, to hopefully minimize the number of negative messages that they have to communicate. In other words, that we have to let people go every Friday. It would be better to look at the long term and see what we can do for the next 6 months rather than having a death by Fridays, as many companies are wont to do. So it's a combination of strategic direction, revitalization of that direction, and understanding that a positive workforce, even in the downfall times, is what will make the difference for their future success.
Great. Thanks for that feedback. I think the last question I had, Mary, was, if you get 10 random business owners into a room who all want to change their culture, is there a stuck that you always see? Is there a mistake that is common that you'd warn off any business owner approaching the issue of improving their culture?
Well, the throwaway answer that we always would say when people, ask us, I want to change the culture. And, of course, tongue in cheek, we could say, if you really want to change the culture, then what you need to do is change the person in the corner office. And then when they realize you're actually talking about them, they go, no, I don't mean I need to leave. Well, that's the beginning part, because if an individual really wants to change a culture, whether it's a G2 inheriting a G1's culture or a G3 inheriting a G2's culture, they have to start with themselves. And until the president, the CEO, begins to look at how they are creating that culture, we will be asked to go forward. One way that they can begin to do that is to get a reality check. And the reality check is to do a culture survey. The culture survey is an informal process that really captures what the employees think of the current culture. That becomes the baseline. The CEOs, the presidents, they could think they know what the culture is, but until you prove data, you're never quite sure what the real culture is. Once they know the culture as it exists, they can begin to move forward to either revise the culture or adjust and change the culture in order to make the vision of a possible future something that's real to everyone.
Great. Mary, thank you so much for your time today.
Hey, take good care and all the best to you.